I'm good. Okay, so before I get into my presentation, there's the QR code right here. If you scan this, this will take you to my instructional materials and a few other things that I'll be talking about today in my presentation. Uh, Before I start, I want to share a quick story. The other day in my ag mechanics class, my professor, Dr. John Ewing, said to our class that to be an expert at something, you have to do 10,000 hours of it. And then he proceeded to tell us he's not an expert at plumbing. However, each year he keeps learning and practicing those skills. That's something that kind of reminded me that I haven't spent 10,000 hours in the classroom yet. I'm not an expert. So I would like to invite you guys today on my journey in agriculture education and get to know me and my journey a little better. So the first question I'm going to be asked or answering is, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? But to kind of understand who I want to be, we kind of have to understand who I already am. So I apologize in advance. There's going to be a lot of pictures with goats today, but just bear with me. I promise it'll be worth it in the end. So as you can see here, I was 9 years old when 9 years old when I got into showing livestock. I have a really deep background in market animals. And as you can see here, 2 years ago was my last year showing goats. Uh, I also showed other livestock such as hogs and market rabbits as well. So I have a pretty good background with many different species. I have a lot of different experiences with that. As you can see here, this is the farm that my grandparents own and that I grew up on. I spent a lot of time growing up on the farm, learning about the dairy industry, learning a little bit about hay and crop production. And because of these experiences, I have a really unique background that I'm proud to bring into the agriculture classroom. I also started my own business with my mother. I'm co-owner of Cain's Market Goats, where I turned a supervised agricultural experience into a business that we now operate together. I also had some experience with beef cattle, and unfortunately, I'm not involved with that much anymore, but I definitely work with a lot of different species of livestock. So to get into it, let's learn about the three-circle model of ag education. So as you can see here, the first one is classroom instruction. This is the day-to-day business of me walking into the classroom and teaching students. So that's very important that this component is in agricultural education. Along with that, we have supervised agricultural experiences, or SAE as it can be abbreviated. This is where students get to go home and get to work on agricultural projects and get experience, hands-on experience that they otherwise would not have. So it's very important that our students can get that experience, not just the book work and learning, but also the physical hands-on work. We also have FFA leadership, which is very important as we're trying to develop our students to become better leaders, and we want them to be productive members of society. I want to talk a little bit about my teaching philosophy. So I have three main points here: career development and leadership opportunities, hands-on experience, and students working together. So I first want to talk about career development and leadership opportunities. These can be career development events and leadership development events, also known as CDEs or LDEs. It's important that I want my students to participate in these activities because, again, this is how they can apply that hands-on, that knowledge that they learn in the classroom and apply it and show off to other people that, hey, I learned a skill. I'm not just here to remember facts and statistics. It's also important that our students are taking part in FFA officer positions, as I'll talk about a little bit later. Just getting out and leading each other is important to me as I want to develop leaders. As we go to hands-on experiences, it's important that we take what we learn in the classroom and apply it to what we learn in the laboratory, as well as what we do in our supervised agricultural experiences. One of my biggest things in high school is that I'm a hands-on learner. I don't learn if you tell me something. I learn if you show me how to do it and then let me try to do it myself. So this is something that I want to implement in my classroom of not just explaining to students how to do something, but also showing and having them do it back as well. And this, again, supervised agricultural experiences is the best way, is a great way of doing this. I also want to promote students working together. So a lot of times I like to use the think, pair, share method in my instruction. I think it's important that students work together as it prepares them for the workforce. So I want them to be able to work with their colleagues and peers down the road in the future. As you can see here, behind me is my classroom expectations, procedures, and consequences. This is my classroom management plan as I'm developing this still somewhat today. I'm not very well experienced with classroom management, so making this plan has kind of helped me have a roadmap of what to do and what I expect of my students. I think it's important for my students to be prepared, on time, respectful, responsible, and actively engaged. The one I really want to hit on the most is be respectful. I was with another teacher at the National FFA convention, and I heard her say at least like once every 10 minutes, "Are you being respectful to her students?" over and over again. And what really struck me as important was that eventually the students were saying it back to her or saying it to each other. So I think this is very important that we're being respectful to each other and that we're also making sure that everyone else is being respectful, that everyone's opinion is being talked about. For my procedures, I want students to enter the classroom, find their seat, start working right on the bell work. I'm trying to teach bell to bell in a 41-minute period, which goes really fast. So we got to get straight to work. We can't just walk in and talk for 10, 15 minutes. We need to get right to work. As they're working on their bell ringer, they need to be working quietly and waiting patiently for others, because I don't want people distracting others, because that can be a little difficult for learning. And finally, at the end of class, if we're doing a lab, clean up the materials so that the next class can come in and get right to work as well. If students are not meeting these expectations, the consequences that I have, these align with Wellsboro High School's consequences as well, is that I will issue a warning to the student, as well as just kind of have a one-on-one, like, come on, what's going on? And then that can kind of advances to a student conference where I have a deeper one-on-one conversation, where we talk this through and, just kind of figure out why are we acting this way? Why are we doing this? Why didn't we do this? After that, it kind of advances a little higher to a detention and the parent is notified. I like to try to handle things in-house, but if that doesn't work, sometimes a little more action needs to be taken. After that, a disciplinary referral is the last step. And it's important that I reserve the right to advance to the next level, because if a student does something that is so unacceptable that a warning doesn't cover it, it's important that I can advance and move up to the next level if needed. I was tasked with deciding what my ideal program curriculum is. As I mentioned earlier, animal science is my really favorite topic to talk about. However, I do think it's important that we are teaching to a broad agricultural topics, not just one specific topic like animal science or plant science. I also included things such as ag mechanics. While that's not one of my strengths, I think it's important that students kind of can have different options and be well balanced based on what the local needs are in the community as well for careers. And as we're talking about ag mechanics, I want to share with you my $15 project that I made. So I made these flowers out of scrap metal. So it's a little bit of a cheat. It's not quite $15. It's less than $15. And if you guys want to, I can pass these around. You can look at them. Make sure you hand them and leave them in the back when you're done then.
I was looking for a gift for my wife.
The cool thing about these flowers, as I said, is I used recycled material. So if you look at the stem, that is the base from a like yard sign. So after this last election, you guys might have a lot of political yard signs. You can reuse the bases and recycle them so they're not just getting thrown in the trash. The flower petals themselves are made from sheet metal. Again, I use recycled metal, so that really cuts down on cost, but it's not super expensive to purchase that as well. This is a really cool introduction project for like a intro to ag mechanics course. But I also think this is useful that you could use it in a plant science course as well, as you can kind of talk about the different parts of the flower. And with that, you can also paint them different colors to kind of teach floral design as well. I think it's important to integrate FFA as it's an intracurricular, not an extracurricular organization. Some ways that I plan to do this is making sure my students are participating in career and leadership development events, also known as CDE and LDE. So participating in different content events such as livestock evaluation, floriculture, land surveying and measurement, ag mechanics, as well as participating in leadership development events like public speaking, interviewing, and certain activities like that that prepares you for your future careers. I also think it's important to have leadership positions. This is me whenever I was a president of the Bald Eagle FFA chapter, and I learned a lot that year. I learned how to work together with a team. I also learned how do I manage a FFA chapter. You know, it really comes down to a student-led organization where the students are running the program, and I kind of got a good background of that in high school, and I'm planning to take the skill sets that I learned in high school and apply them into my future ag program that I'll be teaching at. SAE or supervised agricultural experience integration is super important as well. So students have the opportunity outside of class time and sometimes a little bit inside class to perform different agricultural experiences. So some examples of those are owning and raising livestock to show at the county fair, owning a lawn care business, working in a greenhouse, job shadowing different careers, as well as like growing crops. But it's also can be different. It doesn't have to be specific to like production ag. You can also do like a research project where you propose a research question and try to solve or find an answer to this question as well. Overall, there's a lot of different opportunities for students to get involved in supervised agricultural experiences. And my goal as the educator is to advise students and supervise them through these, but also at the same time, help them find their interest and help them apply that to agriculture so that they can learn skills that they can take into the workforce someday. I had the opportunity to make a recruitment video with my cohort member, Gage, Mr. McCabe, and we decided to kind of make this video based on agriculture education within the state of Pennsylvania. And we kind of focused on our two cooperating centers. So it's kind of a different variety because his program is slightly different than my program. So we kind of wanted to also showcase that ag education is not like one size fits all. Everyone kind of has a different take on it and that we can appreciate that as well. I also think that it's important that I'm not the only one recruiting for my ag program. I think it's very important that the students are the ones recruiting for the agriculture program. So I want to model what my expectations up here for the program so that I have students that come into my program ready to learn, willing to start the day and do great things. However, I think it's important that while I'm modeling what behavior I want, that my students are then going out and sharing with their friends, hey, we just did this in Mr. Cain's animal science class, or tomorrow in ag mech class, we're going to be doing this. You would really enjoy this. You should take this class next year. Students like to listen to their friends a little bit better than they listen to teachers, as I'm sure you all know. So I think it's important that my students are marketing and showing the great and awesome things that we do so that their friends want to take the ag classes as well and learn more about agriculture. I was also had the opportunity to think about a community-based unit of instruction. So a community-based unit of instruction is essentially a unit where students participate in the community, usually through like a community service or a way that they can give back to their community, while at the same time the community partners kind of come in sometimes and can present or talk to the students and get them involved in the community as well. So I'm not exactly have a plan to teach this, but one example of how I could use a community-based unit of instruction is, as you can see here, students at Wellsboro got the opportunity to participate in a bear check-in station where they were checking in bears that were hunted. They worked with the Pennsylvania Game Commission with this, so they were able to give back to the community and help people as well as learn more about this process. And in the same sense, we are planning to have a wildlife enforcement officer to come into the classroom and talk about what they do for a living and help get students psyched up to go into a career with wildlife management as well as forestry, different types of natural resources careers. The next question I'm going to answer is, what experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to become a better agricultural educator? I took a lot of courses here at Penn State. As most of you know, this is my 5th year, so I've taken a lot of classes. So I really had to break this down. I started in the animal science major, so I would be lying if I didn't have an animal science class up here. I put the class Animal Science 309, which is beef production and management, taught by Dr. Daniel Niffen. This class really helped me develop as I learned more about beef production in the beef industry. And it eventually was why I I owned a cow-calf pair for a little while. An activity I got to do in this was I got to show at the Little International. This is the heifer I showed. I called her Taco. We didn't get along too well the one night, but anyways, I had a great time learning how to work with livestock as well as what are some different management things that I can teach to my students in the classroom someday. I also took English 50, which if you guys look in the QR code you had at the beginning or on the handout, I included a poem that I wrote in there. This was a creative writing class, and it really helped me to express my emotions more, and which is something I struggle with sometimes. But to get my emotions out on paper and share a story that happened to me, that was really impactful for me. So if you want to read my poem, How to Hold a Goat, that's in my folder if you guys are interested in that. I don't know if there's any poetry readers here. The third class that was very impactful for me was Agribusiness Management 330W with Dr. Adrian Timms. This course outlined a lot of different agricultural businesses, and I had the opportunity to learn and research about different businesses and the products that they sell, different management things with that. So this really helped me as I'm helping students with their businesses and entrepreneurial endeavors with supervised agricultural experiences. It helped me to kind of understand like business structure some. In this class, I got to research a company, and I chose John Deere because I had a John Deere jacket on that day. And so that's a great company to work with. But we researched John Deere and we looked at like their strengths and weaknesses. And we, as a group, we came up with an idea of how can we improve one of their weaknesses and how can we partner with another company to make a product. Here at Penn State, I had the opportunity to receive several certifications. The first one is National Ag Literacy Certification by the National Center for Agricultural Literacy. This was an online certification, which really helped me learn more about different topics of agriculture that I'm not as familiar with, as well as it helped me kind of touch up on some topics that I was familiar with and I haven't heard or learned much about for a while. I also received the National Safe Tractor Machinery Operation Instructor certification, which means that I can teach students how to drive a tractor. If my grandfather was here, he'd probably be shaking his head like my grandmother is right now, but I definitely need to work on that more, but I can now instruct students on how to do that, which I'm excited to do in the future. I'm also certified in first aid, CPR, and AED, which is something I hopefully never have to use. However, I'm prepared to go in the classroom and use these skills if necessary. I had the opportunity within the last year or so to attend a lot of professional development events. I attended the summer conference for Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators. That was in Somerset County. And I showed a picture here where I'm learning about biotechnology. I'll tell you right now, I thought biotechnology had something to do with ag mechanics. I was way wrong. So this is just an example of how I got to learn about a different topic that I'm not familiar with, and I'm trying to step outside of my comfort zone a little. I also recently attended the National Convention of the National Association of Agricultural Educators in San Antonio, Texas, where I met a lot of different people all across the country that are in my position preparing to student teach within the next semester or a couple years. This was really important for me because I was able to network with a lot of people and see how big agriculture education is outside of the state of Pennsylvania. I also attended the Ag Inquiry Institute that Penn State Teach Ag put on this, or that the Center for Professional Development put on this year. And here I am in this picture. I'm learning about Ag Inquiry and how I can incorporate like questioning and like solving questions in my classroom. It helped me realize that education is not just teacher-led, it can also be student-led as well. I also attended the National FFA Convention, as I mentioned earlier, and I got to spend the week with this great group of kiddos from Kawaneski Valley FFA. It was awesome to see how a team from rural Pennsylvania that grew up on dairy farms can go compete at a national convention with hundreds of other students from across the country. So it was awesome to see students that had hardly ever left their county for the first time get to see about what agriculture looks like in the rest of the country. I want to try to make this connection of I grew up on the farm and got into showing livestock and eventually started this business with my mother, Cain's Market Goats. Go check out the Facebook page if you haven't already. I learned a lot through owning livestock. I learned how to like manage livestock and also keep records, which I also learned how to like be a leader and help upcomings 4-H and FFA members, show them how to work with animals and how to prepare their animals for the show ring. And I think that's very important as I can apply some of the skills I use there as I go into the classroom. I also am trying to promote more diversity in my classroom. As you can see here on the right, I taught a lesson about livestock identification and ear tagging to to State College LifeLink students, students in the special education department there. And this was a great opportunity for me to first kind of just test out a lesson, but also to get different feedback and learn how different modalities of learners learn. I also, over the summer at the PAAE conference, learned about the book, What the World Eats, which kind of outlines what foods and how much people eat throughout the world in different countries. And this is something I would like to incorporate in one of my classes someday, as I think it's important to kind of touch on global agriculture and that agriculture expands further than just the county and the school district that you live in. The next question is, how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? As I said, as was mentioned before, I'll be at Wellsboro High School with my cooperating teacher, Mrs. Melanie Bernstein. I will also be teaching with Miss Amber Whitney, who teaches some ag mechanics, and I'll be teaching a DIY home improvement course some with her. So I'm excited to get to learn more of those skills and get to teach those to students as well. As I talked about the three-circle model of ag education, I want to outline that there's a classroom and there's also several laboratories. So up here is kind of the aquatics, amphibians kind of laboratory. So there's tanks where they raise trout. They also raise eel in their classroom as well. And they have some reptiles as well, I believe. They also have a animal facility here where they have a pen that they bring a sow in to farrow out each year. So students can learn how do you work with pigs from birth to after a few weeks when they move it out, man. It's also important, they also work with rabbits as well. So students can kind of see production of birth to processing of an animal as well. Some of the strengths at Wellsboro in the Grand Canyon FFA chapter is that they are very active in supervised agricultural experiences. This is really important, as I think, again, in my philosophy, hands-on experiences is how we can reach students. They're also very active in their community. They do a lot of different community service activities, as well as fundraising within their local community. They also perform very well in CDE and LDEs. They've had many teams go to the state level as well as the national level, which is awesome because I participated in some in high school, but I didn't get to the state level. So I would love to get to work with some students that are performing at this level and hopefully get to take them even further to the national level. Through my student teaching experience, I want to show a little screenshot of my calendar of what I'm going to be doing. So as you can see here, there's a lot of classes I'm teaching. So I'll be teaching 8 separate classes because I have 2 sections of intro to ag. And I also have 2 5-period classes that I'll switch back and forth between teaching. This is in my folder. If you scan the QR code, you can see this as well, just to kind of see what different classes I'm teaching and what my calendar kind of looks like. These are examples of some of the classes I'm teaching. So you can see here, I have intro to ag leadership, natural resources, home improvement, plant science, animal science 1 and 2. Within these, I break it down to each specific unit I'll be teaching. So this is for the intro to ag course here. And this is just kind of the best way for me to organize it so that I can remember what unit am I teaching, pull up the unit, and then find the specific lessons I'm teaching as well. I want to talk about some of my strengths. So I'm a hard worker. I grew up I'm a 5th generation farmer and was instilled with a strong work ethic by my grandparents, my parents, and a lot of my family members. When I'm trying to work on something, I get it done. You know, a lot of times people might hear me say, "Don't worry, it'll get done. I'll get it done," because I might not know when or how I'm going to get it done, but I do know I will get it done. So that's my work ethic. I also am a creative thinker, I believe. I'm not sure what you guys think on that, but I think I'm a creative thinker. I like to look at a problem and try to come up with a different solution. Oftentimes, I just like to stand back and think about it a little differently. My growth goals are time management and overcoming my procrastination. I need to become more organized, so I'm working on trying to use a planner and trying to improve my skills of managing my time appropriately. What do I contribute to my cohort? I don't contribute just goat pictures. However, here's a couple cool goat pictures. I contribute my background in animal science and on the farm. I found out early this semester that I'm the only one from my cohort that grew up on a farm. So I like to share those experiences. I also mentioned earlier, I came from a different major. So like this goat Ruthie, I came kind of from another farm and I had to apply my background and get into the program. So I want to thank you guys for your time today. Your support is very much appreciated, and I think we have some time for questions now.
Thank you, Caleb. Time for questions. Again, those of you in the online audience, if you don't mind adding some questions to the chat, Maya will translate. Caleb, I'll start us off with a very serious question, which is, why is there a monstera on your classroom procedures expectations documents and not a goat? There being an animal science theme instead of a.
I was trying to develop my other topics and try to learn more about plant science, and that's why I've developed these. In the future, I might make ones with goats on it.
But no, seriously, you mentioned quite a few times around this idea of a student-led program, right? The FFA is about being student-led. I want you to elaborate that and put action to how do you keep from being that person that does all the work and that does all the work with students. How do you make actionable that it's a student-led program in the future?
So first, I'd like to mention that there's FFA officers, and the title of the ag teacher in the officers is the advisor. And I try to live out that it's not my job to tell students what to do. It's my job to advise them as they're doing their responsibilities. I think it really comes down to making sure you select a great group of officers that lead your organization, and making sure that they're responsible and that they're willing to work together, as well as finding, as you're developing committees and such, making sure that the students on them are willing to do the work. You can't just hand it off to the kids that are in the classroom all the time because they just like ag class. You have to make sure it's students that are engaged and want to hold the leadership positions as well. With that, some activities that I want to implement to make sure it's student-led is making sure that the students have the say in what goes on. So like when we're planning out events and different fundraisers with FFA, I think it's okay for me to show some ideas and say, hey, this is what we did in the past and it worked or might not have worked, but it's ultimately their decision, letting them take the initiative and saying, well, actually, I want to try this fundraiser because I heard about it or did it in another club. So really just letting the students take ownership in that.
I'd like to piggyback on that question, Caleb. So I heard you say, and you used the word intercurricular, and I know you feel that. So I'm asking the question of what is the agriculture teacher's responsibility, who also serves as the FFA advisor, if FFA is intercurricular part of the curriculum, then what are we willing to do if the students don't want to do anything? So how would we handle that? Because the math teacher wouldn't say, well, the students don't want to do chapter 2, that's part of our curriculum, we're not going to do chapter 2. So if FFA is intercurricular and we're student-led, what happens if the student don't do anything?
So that ultimately kind of comes back down to my classroom consequences. We are here to learn. We're not here just to sit in the back of the class and talk about cows, plows, and sows. We're here to actually learn about agriculture and learn about the future of ag. So I will implement my consequences, as well as if they're not meeting my expectations of being actively engaged, I will call them out and ensure that they are continuing to work. Because in other classes, such as the math class, if they say, well, I don't feel like doing this, chances are it's going to reflect in their grades that they didn't do it, and they're still going to have to do it. I also want to hit on that as FFA is intercurricular, I think it's important that we are teaching the curriculum towards leadership development and career development events, so that students can kind of see can understand the purpose of why we're doing this, of, oh, we're learning about how to evaluate livestock so that whenever I start my own farm, I can know what animals to purchase or which animals to keep. So I think it's important keeping it relevant to what's the purpose of learning this as well.
Thank you.
So we have one from the chat from Lydia Everhart. She says, great job, Caleb. As part of working with diverse learners, how will you plan and build relationships with colleagues to help support you in teaching these diverse learners? And why are these relationships important across content areas?
So in agricultural education, oftentimes there's typically students with IEPs or students that have that need accommodations or modifications. So I think it's important at the beginning of the school year to go to the special education teachers and ask, you know, what students, which of your students do I have in my courses, and also what can I do to provide the best educational opportunity for them. I think it's important to especially reach out with the colleagues that are working with these students every single day, as well as reach out to other colleagues like transition coordinators and different positions so that we can kind of get these students not just graduated, but graduated going into a career that they're interested in.
I was wondering if you could recite your poem for us. No, I'm kidding.
That'll be after the closed door session, if you're willing to stay.
I am curious, what's the number one thing that you hope to accomplish through student teaching?
I think the number one thing that I hope to accomplish during student teaching is to just learn about every single topic that I can, just pull in as much information as I can. As well as that, also kind of developing more of my skills that I have from that I've learned within the last year or so at Penn State in ag education, just getting to develop and apply those skills. So that way, once I graduate, I can go in first day in a classroom and know what I'm doing and not just fake it till I make it.
How do you plan on incorporating technology into your ag classroom?
So in Wellsboro High School, they utilize Google Classroom, and I'm planning to do bell work on Google Classroom, as well as having students, having them do some research using their laptops as well. So they're able to use that technology that they already have. At Wellsboro, nobody is allowed to have cell phones out. So I know some school districts are different about that, but if they're being used appropriately, I believe it's okay, but not at Wellsboro because that's a school rule and I'm abiding to that. But in the future, I think we could use our cell phones as well to like I had a QR code up here. Maybe I have something like that students can utilize to their phones to read things. Also using not just like technology like computers, but as we're learning about agriculture that is constantly evolving, learning about the new technology that agriculture has to offer and trying to incorporate that by getting some of it in my classroom.
I just want to shout out that you answered your buddy OP McCubbin, since you probably met in San Antonio. He asked that question as well,
Yeah.
which I think you did a good job answering in the chat.
One more question. Caleb, I really appreciate how you said, I love animal science. And I love parliamentary procedure. John loves small gas engines. Kevin loves animal science. How do we ensure a program does not only reflect the teacher's interest from the content? How do we do that?
So I believe it's important to first look at our occupational and local advisory committees and see what are the needs, what are the industry needs in that school district, and to determine what industries we need to prepare our students for. At Wellsboro, there's a lot of forestry and natural resources management. So I'm teaching a forestry and natural resources management class next semester. There's also a lot of beef production up there as well. So I have a unit about cattle and I'll be teaching about beef production because these are skills and knowledge that students need as they leave the high school and hopefully get hired in the local community. It's also important that we do keep it a little broad to other topics as well, as not every single student is gonna grow up in Wellsboro and live in Wellsboro the next 60, 70 years of their life. Chances are that some students are gonna move out. So we do need to prepare them for other topics as well and ultimately help the students find their interest.
Time for one more.
Gil, what are you most looking forward to about your student teaching experience and being up north in Wellsboro?
So I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is getting into the classroom more. I've been the last few years learning so much pedagogical knowledge and content about education and teaching. I'm just ready to start applying it. Kind of like the supervised agricultural experience. This is almost kind of our version of getting out, taking the content we learned in class and actually applying it. And like I said, I'm a hands-on learner, so getting to use these skills every day and trying to develop those.
Can we give him one more round of applause?